What's going
Hey,
on,
how's it
man?
going?
Hey,
Not
hey, hey.
much. Just so you know, I wasn't mad about what I said. I just had to say it.
Oh yeah, no, totally.
So,
I didn't get the impression that you were upset. More like that you were just giving honest feedback,
yeah,
which is
that's
good.
what it was.
hmm
So,
we had a little discussion, mini discussion in the staff channel about it. Like, okay, what's going on, addressing the concerns, and basically where we're at is, they really wanted to cover basic SQL because tomorrow you're going to be doing API interaction, where you're actually going to be getting information from an API and then storing it. And that's a really important skill, but I feel like the pace of today's lecture just left a lot of people in the dust. So that's
yeah,
that's
for
my.
sure.
I love that they implemented this lecture the way that they did because it used to be a lot slower. Which actually made tomorrow's lecture more confusing because they didn't cover DB or anything like that, how to get your database set up. So they had to do that. Like, oh yeah, and in passing, real quick, here's how you do your database. So one way or the other, somebody was going to get lost.
Yeah,
But hopefully, if I do this step by step and then make sure everyone's able to follow along with each individual step, we can kind of demystify some of this stuff. Just give it a minute for everybody to hop in here that wants to be present. There we go. If they want to be. So how much do you guys already understand about Flask? Is, I guess, the first question I should ask. 'Cause I don't want to assume knowledge.
only from what we talked about today.
Okay,
Yeah, same.
pretty much. Pretty much. Okay, cool. Okay, so I want to start with a little bit of background first before we get started. Flask by itself is entirely designed around web application. Okay, so everything about Flask is designed to be able to run and display information through web portals. Okay, so everything that you discussed in the first part of that lecture, HTTP, super important to understand where all that's coming from, right? Web protocols are going to be an important aspect in your application design. Okay, so understanding what a post and a GET request is really what's most important. Those are the two primary requests that you're going to be working with for the Flask app. Okay, post, again, just to reiterate here, post is anytime that your client is requesting to give information to the server. All right, so I want to send info from my computer to a server. That is a post request, right? From me to server. And anything from server to me is a GET request, right? Make sense? Okay. That's going to be kind of like that's the foundational understanding that we need to be able to continue. All right, cool. So let's start with with step number one, right? The very first thing that we have to do, and let me go ahead and share my screen actually, so that this can all be shared. All right, first thing that we need to do is actually create the place, right? So I'm going to start from step one and make sure everyone's on track here and is able to do the same things I'm doing, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make a new directory for this web app, okay? And I'm just going to call it web app, real basic. So you probably already have something like this set up from where you were attempting to follow along with lecture, right? So I've created this and we see that it's populated. So I'm going to CD there. Okay. Second step, the very next thing that I want to do is create a virtual environment for this application, right? So I'm going to go ahead and pipenv, and we want to install, and I want Python version 3.7. Okay. And I'm also going to go ahead and tell it to install a couple of packages that I know we're going to need. We're going to need Flask. We're going to need Flask SQL Alchemy. That's going to be our database interpreter, right? And what else do we need? Actually, I don't think we need anything else right now. Yeah, We don't need migrate. I don't understand what all that was, but we don't need any of that nonsense because life is so much more simple than that. So we're just going to install these two things, okay? Bear in mind that you might see him using the migrate thing. It's not going to do anything different than what I'm about to show you, okay?
I'm sorry, Brandon. Can you make your terminal a little bit bigger?
Oh, is
Please?
it hard to see? Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Sorry.
Hang on 1 second. Settings. I think I need to do it on. Nope. It's been a minute since I've actually played with this, so give me a second.
I'm sorry, I didn't know you have to do stuff like that. I was thinking you just can make it.
Right. We can do full screen. Is that bigger? Can you see
Yes.
this?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right. So we've got our pip environment created. We have installed Flask and Flask SQL Alchemy, which is perfect. That's all we really need. Hey, Ryan, what's going on? Well, what's happening? Actually, you know what? Does anyone have Andy on their DMs? Shoot him a link, please. I think he would also very much enjoy to be a part of this. All right. So now we've got our pip environment set up. Awesome. We've got a pip file and our pip file.lock. Excellent. First thing I'm going to do, which was not discussed today, is touch a .env file. Okay, this is going to be our environment file. It's going to contain all of the parameters that we want Flask to use, but only on our computers, right? Let me be clear. This is only for you. This will never go on GitHub, okay? The .env file never goes on GitHub, okay? So I'm going to touch a .env. If you are in Windows and you don't have the clink command prompt like what I'm using right now, you would do something like, .env, and that's just going to put a blank space, right, in a new file called .env. Okay.
Brent, I'm sorry to interrupt. Is this in the virtual environment or in the base environment that we're doing the .env file touch?
Oh, that it doesn't really matter yet. We haven't actually gone into any environments. Okay. This is environment ambiguous right now. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and use my text editor, Adam, to access the .env file because I want to go ahead and edit it. Okay. There we go. I've got my .env tab open, and what I'm going to do here, this is an environment file. Okay. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to put a couple of things. One is a secret key. Anytime that you're going to be allowing people to pass information to and fro a server, it needs to have a secret key. We don't yet have one of those. We have not created one, and that's okay. For now, we can leave this blank. Okay, but understand that eventually we will populate something here. I also want to pass in some Flask specific environment variables. One is going to be debug mode. Okay, and debug currently, because we were working in our development server, is going to be true. Okay, where's everybody at? Is everyone following along so far? Excellent.
What are you guys doing?
I am going through how this lecture should have been taught.
Oh,
thank you. Just kind
amen,
of
brother.
What is the difference between a pip environment or and an env?
Okay, so the env file is an environment file. It is oh, okay, I see what you're, okay, so you have a virtual environment. That's a Python environment, okay? It's isolating this project and all of its Python specific packages. The .env stores in key value pairs information that we're going to access in the application. So in here, what we're doing is we're giving it, okay, we're saying, when I reference secret key, right, it's referring to this value. And when I reference debug, I'm talking about this value. Okay, we're setting up a mapping one-to-one of some key to some value, not unlike a dictionary. Okay?
I'm just confused at why we couldn't do the same thing just in our pip file, you know?
Oh,
just
yeah,
reference the pip file.
Because this is virtual environment ambiguous. It doesn't. Yeah. It might be a little bit more clear when we get to the next step where we actually start accessing this stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
But for now, we just need these two. Okay. This would typically be where anything. Let me be clear. This would be API keys would go in here. Things that you don't want people to have access to, right? But are required for your application to run. So your API keys would go here. Secret tokens, not unlike our secret key. Let's see. Other sensitive information. Right, this is information that other people don't need access to, but that your app requires to run, right? So if you use an API, but people don't, it's against the terms of service to allow others to have access to that API information, then you can't put it on GitHub, right? And in order to use the information with your deployed server, but you want to keep all of your code open source, you have to include an environment file for your deployment and keep it secret, keep it off of GitHub. So all they have access to is the source code, not the secret key or the API tokens that you're using. Does that make sense? Does everyone follow that?
Yeah.
Go ahead and save that. We're done with it. Okay. Now, when we do our look-see, that's what I call LS. We do our look-see, we got nothing, okay? But if we look at all of the files, including the hidden ones, we can see that .env is there in this parent directory. And just so everyone can kind of follow along, because that can be kind of hard to track. Let me go here to my D web app. This is what it looks like currently. So at the base directory, we've got our DMV, or our ENV and our pip files. Okay. So now we're ready to go to the next step, which is going to be create the app folder. Okay. So I'm going to make a new directory, and I'm going to call this app. Real simple, right? So now I know where it's going to be, and I need to touch inside of app. So I'm going to go in there, into that folder, and I'm going to create some new files. One's going to be init. You guys know what that's for. All right. One's going to be routes. One's going to be model. Actually, I'm going to call this models. And one, no, we don't need that one yet. Okay, so I've got some really basic setups, right? I've got an init, which constructs the package environment. So now Python will know that this is a package setup. All right. I've got a routes.py. That's where all of the routing information is going to be contained. Okay. And I've got a models.py. Models is where all of the ORM stuff's going to go. The object relational mapping stuff is going to go. Okay. That's going to be like your database models. That's where that's going to be centered on. If you had web forms, fun fact, you can also do ORM with a web form, right? Not unlike having text inputs that you hit submit button and it sends that information back to the server. And if you wanted to do object relational mapping with a web form, you would also include something like forms.py, right? And then this would be a typical setup for a very basic web application, right?
You don't need an index.html file?
We're going to get to that.
Oh, okay.
We're going to get to that. The next two directories that we're going to need on any basic web application, okay, and I'm giving you the bare bones framework for any web app, okay, is a static folder. So we're going to make a new directory called static and a directory called templates. So this is the setup. And in fact, on my last 3 Flask applications, this is exactly the setup, right? Just exactly these files. Init, forms, models, routes. That's all of our Python stuff. Static and templates. Static is where all of your homegrown CSS, JavaScript, anything that you want to include with JavaScript is going to be in static. Basically, all of the assets for this application on the website, right? Images, JavaScript, CSS, all that's going to go in static, okay? Because
with that, Brandon, is the dot ignore going in there too?
The dot ignore, the get ignore, you mean?
Get ignore, yeah.
Get ignore goes in the base file. We're gonna touch that
base,
next.
okay.
Yeah, we haven't done a get. We haven't actually set up get yet, but we're gonna get to that. Okay.
Can
templates
you
is
tell? I'm sorry. Can you tell what you're using on command prompt instead of touch? Like this was. I cannot use the touch.
yes. If you don't have access to the touch command, you're on Windows, you don't have that. One thing I could recommend, I think this is Clink, so I can do this. You can do Notepad. This is a very easy way to do this that doesn't include any invisible characters. Do Notepad and then test.py, whatever file you want it to create, and it's going to open this. And it's going to cannot find test.py file. Do you want to create a new file? Yes. Okay. And then we're going to come down here, save as. And you can see that it's trying to save it as a text document. We don't want that. Okay. We want test.py. So you'll change save as type to all files and then include the extension .py and then hit save. And now when we look, we have our test.py file here. And it is completely empty. Previously, I was recommending this, and I just remembered that that includes 2 invisible characters, and I don't know what they are. So to avoid any problems, I'm going to recommend you do the Notepad method. Or any other text editor. If you had Atom, you could do it with Atom too. Okay? Just an example. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I'm
Cool.
just gonna do this straight in editor.
Okay, right on. So let me know when everyone's in the same place that I am currently. Is everyone caught up to where I am? You should have an app folder that looks similar to this. Let me get a thumbs up on cam if you're there.
Where is the .env file?
The .env file is in one directory up. It's in our base directory.
Oh, okay.
And we can see it right here.
Okay.
.env.
So the only thing in the base directory is that. Okay, and then everything else goes into an app folder.
Yep, goes in the app folder.
Okay.
Okay. On that note, go ahead and change your directories one level up. Go back to the base directory where you're looking at the env, app folder, and your pip file folders. And we're going to touch something new, something that wasn't discussed today, but that I feel makes everything so simple, it's stupid. Okay. And I have no idea why they're not doing it. You're going to create a run.py file. Okay. You may also see it referred to as a WSGI file, which is maybe a little older school, right? But essentially what it is, it's a file that we're going to reference anytime that we want this application to run. So what is it going to look like? Let's go ahead and create it with Atom, my text editor, and we're going to call it run.py. And that's going to load my text editor here. Awesome. Now, we don't yet have anything in our app, but I can pretty much gauge where this is going to be going, okay? I'm going to have an app folder, and from app, I want to import the function that I'm going to create app. That probably sounds really familiar, right? I think they did something like that very similar in the lecture. So look, our first import statement is going to look like from app, which is the name of the folder, and we're referencing the init, so we don't need to include anything after this. Import. The function we want to import is create app. We haven't actually made this yet, okay? But we're going to. Create 2 empty lines, and now we just do our if name equals main, and we're going to run this app. Okay, that's it. So it's a very simple file. But now instead of having to do flask underscore app equals app flask run, now you can just do Python run.py, right? Dumb easy, okay? We're gonna save that and go ahead and close out of this, we're done. So when we look, now, I don't know why it's kind of like running off the screen here a little bit. We have our app folder, our pip file folders, and our run.py. Everybody tracking so far?
Did you change your resolution?
I don't know. Yeah, it might have, maybe. Let me see. Nope. Stop that.
I forget what screen refresh is, but if you just do a screen refresh, it should fix it.
And yeah, let me try. It's the first time I've ever done it with it being large like this. Here we go. I see the issue. Yeah. Okay. Let's see what we're gonna do here. 1600 by 900. There we go. All right, so everyone should be able to see that now. Yeah, there we go. All right. So you got app, pip file.lock, and run.py. So let's go ahead and create the information that we need in our init to make this work. So we're going to cd into app, and we're going to go ahead and open our init. Outstanding. It's completely empty. So we need to make some stuff in here, right? One of the first things that we're going to do is go ahead and say we're going to import Flask, and we're also going to go ahead and import, or rather we'll say from Flask underscore SQL Alchemy, import SQL Alchemy. Kim E. There we go. Having trouble spelling today. All right. So these are going to be the two things that we need. This is going to be how we get our database up and running, right? And Flask is the core package that we need in order to instantiate the class. All right. So, or rather create the app. So now we're going to define create app, which is that thing that we reference in the run.py file. Okay, and I'm going to introduce you guys to something called application context. Okay, this is something specific to Flask that I, again, have no idea why they didn't cover because it's from the documentation. But when you do the application factory, you are going to be working within the application context. Okay, and I can expand more on that later if needed. But essentially, the way that, well, actually, first, I missed a step. Hang on. First thing we need to do is define DB as being an instance of this SQL Alchemy class. Nothing else works unless we do that. Okay. So now, from within the create app, we're going to say app equals, because app is the thing that we want to run. All right. And we need to say it's going to be equal to Flask. Oh, it's been a minute since I've done this, guys. My bad. From Flask, import Flask. So from Flask, the package, you import Flask, the object. My apologies. We need to do this part first. Okay. So you're going to import Flask, the object, and SQL Alchemy, the object. We're assigning a global variable, which is DB, to be an instance of the SQL Alchemy class. And then we're going to say our app equals Flask name. Okay, and this is a funny way of referring to the file from which this is running, which is the init, which, in case for those of you that don't know what this gets referred to, this gets referred to as main, which is app, because that's what we named it. Right? So the folder's name is app. App becomes app of Flask type app. This is really what that's saying. Try not to get too bogged down in the semantics of all this. That's quite confusing. But we're going to assign an instance of this variable application to an object Flask. Okay. Next step. There's one that comes before this. Okay, so the other thing that he covered in lecture about the configurations, I want to cover that real quick. We're going to be doing a slightly different configuration setup. One, in my opinion, that's a little bit simpler and easier to understand, using an object relational configuration. And when we do that, we have to add one more parameter here to this Flask object that says relative config instance equals false. And I'm pretty sure that's what that is. I'm going to double check it, but I'm pretty sure it's relative config equals false. And I will cover what that means more when we get to the part where we actually do the configuration. Okay, but then you would actually do app.config, .config, yeah, hang on, actually.
I keep getting an autofill and it says instant relative config.
Yeah, it's been a second since I've actually had to do this. Hang on one second, y'all. 1 second. I'm going to pause my share while I go find this info real quick.
Yeah, it says instance relative config equals. It was just the autofill that I got.
Yeah. Oop, yeah. It's a tad strange. Oh yeah, it's instance relative config. Instance relative config. Got that backwards. Not relative config instance. Okay, and then we do app.config from object. So let me show you how this looks. Zoom.
And not to confuse anyone, we're doing this instead of making the models.py. Is this kind of getting rid of that whole?
What's that?
I don't know if you followed along in the lecture, but he made like an entire new file for pretty much everything you're doing in the init file.
Oh yeah, that's weird. I have no idea.
Okay.
So instead of this, rather it's going to be instance relative config equals false. All right. Well, basically what we're saying is that the configuration is not going to be coming from within the application. It's going to be coming from outside the application. So then we have to reference where that is, right? So we're going to say app.config.from object because we're going to create an object. It's going to be a Python object. All right. And then the name of it. Config.py. Okay, so this is going to be something that we're going to create. It needs to be in the base directory. That's where this is going to look because we are running this whole thing from the base directory. Okay, and I'm going to cover some more of that in a second. All right, so now that we've got our app.config from object, we are ready to plug in this DB instance. Okay, DB needs to know about this application, and right now it doesn't. Okay, so we need to fix that. App.app context, and we're going to say db.init app, and we're going to pass in app. Okay, so this is that app context thing I was talking about. What this is doing is this is opening app.app context, and app context is a method of the Flask class. So we have defined that as app, and that's what this is. And then we're opening this app context. So we're getting access to the upper level Flask object, and we are informing our SQL alchemy about it using the init app and then passing app into that, that method. Is everyone tracking what we're doing here? Anyone have any questions about this so far?
No, it's pretty clear
Pretty clear? Okay.
in comparison. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to. I'm introducing new things, so I'm trying not to get people too confused here. But yeah, this is really basic, right? We're plugging this in. We're letting DB know about the application, and in order to do that, we need to give it the information that it needs, right? We need to plug it in. So we did that. Cool. Now we're also going to do one more step here. We're going to import our routes because currently the application does not know about our routes. Okay, we didn't do a from dot routes import routes, right? So we're going to do that now. Okay, we're going to import routes. Okay, it's pretty basic. This is informing the application with the app context open about the routes or rather it's going to be the file, the .py file, and that's going to bring all of that information in. And then the last step is to return the app. Okay. Now remember, all of this gets run when we run that run.py file, right? When we execute that file, it's going to create this application. Okay. So all of this is going to happen in that instance. So let's go ahead and give this some stuff to work with. The very first thing I want to do is work on that config because that ties back into the .m file. Okay, so I've got yeah, I don't have the config file yet. So in the base directory, web app, I'm going to create, rather I'm going to do it like this, atom config.py. And that's going to create a new file here, config.py. And this is going to be pretty simple, okay? But actually, before I do that, we forgot a package. Anyone know what it is? We forgot a Python package in our initial pip environment. We forgot python.env. That's the Python package that reads your environment file. It's set up specifically to look for .envs. So we're going to go ahead and pip-env install python.env. Did everybody see that? So make sure to install this python-.env into your pip-env directory. How's everybody doing so far? Everybody still following?
Yeah, I am.
All right, cool. Okay, so now we're ready to work on this config.py. Yeah, what we're going to need here is from .env imports load env, and let's see, then we need to, yeah. All right, so we're going to create this config class. Don't need that. All right, this is going to be base configuration reading from .env file. Okay. So we're going to use another package, I'm sorry, import OS as well. We need OS to find the .env stuff, okay? And how do we do this? We need to merge the information from our .env file and make it visible to our Python application. And load.env is going to do this for us, okay? So we're actually going to just go ahead and run that like this. When we execute this, it's going to get the information from .env and make it visible to the Python application so that we can come down here and say debug equals os dot environ dot get debug. So let's walk through what this is doing, okay? We're creating another, now we're creating a Python variable, okay? Debug, which is going to be equal to, this bit right here is actually looking at the local environment path, okay? All of the environment variables available to it at this current time. So remember, we had defined environment variables in our .env file. We loaded them into this Python package so that it was able to see it, and then we used environ.get to look for it, and we reference it by the key. Okay, so that was a lot of info. What does that mean? Well, if we go back and we actually look at that .env, right? We had a variable here. This is a global environment variable, and it's set to true. Well, here we have in our class config, we have debug, and it's going to be equal to, this is the key that we're referencing as a string, okay? So we reference the string debug, so that's pulling from right here, and it's going to become equal to this value, okay? So essentially what this says is debug equals, and all of that evaluates to true, okay? That is, in a nutshell, how this whole line of code works. All right, is everyone following along still? Have I lost anybody?
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Why is true in quotes if it's a Boolean?
Right here? Because
Yeah.
we want it in its raw form to be interpreted the same way when it comes here.
And that has to be in the string for it to do that?
No, all values need to be in quotations.
Okay. Okay.
Is the config.py file in the base or in the app folder?
It is in the base folder.
Okay.
So it's not in app, it's in web app. That's our base folder.
All right.
So if we look, actually I haven't saved it yet. Let's go ahead and do that now. Oh, nope, not that thing, this thing. And now we look, we have config.py. So we have our app folder, config, pip stuff, and our run. And real quick, I'm sorry, give me 1 sec, guys. Need to look at something real quick. So how are we feeling so far? This stuff's not that complicated, right?
Okay, I have a question before I got
Yep.
lost. You have a 2 init.py files, yeah? One in base and one app folder, yeah? Or
No, just one. The only init file is going to be in the app folder,
okay.
not in the base folder. That's going to be.
I mean that I just called it, named it wrong. Like this is with the class config. In which file was that?
What's that?
The class config, in which file was it?
It
The
is.
last thing which you did with the debug.
Say that one more time. I'm sorry. I'm having trouble hearing you.
Last file you created with a debug, where everything is.
Yeah.
How did you call that file? Because I just confused names, I think.
Well, it's okay. It's config.
Okay. The file name is the config?
That's correct.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Config.py. Remember, we want that to be a Python file because we're defining a Python class in it.
Okay, thank you.
You got it.
Brandon, if you don't mind, could you put the code in for config.py in the channel? Second.
Yeah, absolutely. Give me 1 second.
Thank you. Sorry, I got a little lost there.
You're good. No worries. Oh, no, and Adrian, I think it was, right? That said something about why is, yeah. So actually, let me real quick. If we look at our config, so this part needs to be in quotations. True doesn't.
All right, that makes sense.
Yeah, no, you're 100% correct. I had to go back and look at that. Like, wait a second. Your secret key will be, because your secret key is going to be a string, right? No, Booleans are not in strings, or rather not in quotations. So if you had quotes around the true, take the quotes off because then it won't work. Needs to be just true by itself. Okay, here's this code. I'll go ahead and share this. And again, too, also, I just want to point out, it would be the same for everything, right? Secret key, if we wanted to reference that as well, would be equal to os.environ.get. And then from that, we would just reference our M file that we have saved as secret key. And that would go in quotations here. Just like that. Okay, that's currently blank, but we'll put it in there just for the sake of posterity. So here is the config file, and I'll go ahead and copy this. And you want this in Slack or in the Zoom chat?
Slack chat, if you can.
Slack, okay.
And can you please also share for me the code for the runpy, because I was falling back a little bit and I missed. Just a copy and for the runpy file, please.
Yeah, hang on 1 second. Let me have to put this in like this.
Do you mind also sharing that in the Zoom chat? Because I don't think I'm in your Slack chat.
Oh, yes, you're not in our Slack chat. Hang on.
I'm a setup crasher.
It's all good. Here we go. I think that's going to be mostly in the right format. Yeah, there we go.
Thank you.
You got it. All right. So just to confirm here that I did this right, I want to go back here. I'm referencing some stuff that I did before because it's just going to be easier to make sure I don't screw this up. And I want to look at my init to make sure I get that right. Yeah. Oh, it's config.config. That's right. I have to reference the file name and then the class name. See, no one remembers this stuff, dudes. That's key to remember this. I have to look this up on Google like every time. If I didn't have working code from before, I would just straight be on Google right now. Like, how do I do that? All right, so we're gonna cd into app, and we're gonna make an update to our init. So I'm going to, actually, I might already have that open. I'm not used to working in a text editor, by the way, in case you're wondering why I keep going back and forth. It's not config.py, it's config because that's the name of the file, and then the name of the class, which is uppercase config. So it'll look something like this: app.config from object, and then we reference from the base directory the name of the file and the name of the class. Okay? config.config in our case, because we have the file config, class config. Save that. Save that. Okay. Yulia, you needed the run.py, right? Let me go ahead and get that for you. Yep. It's just going to be this. Pretty sure that's right. Let me double check. Oh, that's right. It's WSGI. Ah, no, it is app equals create app and then app run. Herb. Yep, see, everyone messes up. Still true. Let's go back to this. This is going to be app equals create app. So if you had this from before in your run.py file, it's app equals create app first. So we're going to reference, or rather we're going to construct this application. And then if this file gets called, we're going to execute the run method on this app. Okay, so I'm going to share this in the Slack and Zoom. This is your run.py file. Oh, nope. Run.py. And in Zoom as well. All right, cool. So let's review what we've got so far. We have our init, which constructs the application. We have run, that actually runs the application. We have our config, that reads the .env file that we created that has our sensitive information, like our secret key, debug mode setting, and all that stuff. Okay, not a lot in here right now. Obviously, for a very, very simple application like this, you wouldn't need one. But when you get your Twitter API key and your Basilica API key, you will absolutely have to use a .env. And so I don't see the need to abstract that away right now, right? This is a core part of pretty much, this should be the first things that you do anytime you start setting up a web application, right? These are the things that you should be doing, okay? Because now we're actually ready to start building the application. So far, all we've done is set up. All right, so let's go back and review. We have our config, our run, and our application folder. And inside the application folder, we have our init forms, which in this case we're not going to be using. We have our models.py here, our routes.py here, our static folder, and our templates folder. Templates is where all the HTML is going to go, by the way. All right, so first thing we want to do is test our routes, right? Just like in the lecture, the very first thing that you want to do is make sure that you get your first initial route set up and that it is working as anticipated. So let's go and go ahead and get into our routes.py. This is where the bulk of the action is going to be taking place. Okay, and I think he covered blueprints. Scrap everything you think you know about blueprints. That is so far beyond the scope of what we're going to be doing. Okay, unless your application is absolutely enormous, you're not using a blueprint. I don't know why people are weird about that. No, you're not. You don't need a blueprint for this. Okay, just need a routes file, somewhere to keep this information contained, all to itself, right? Now, this can get pretty verbose pretty fast, actually. And when that happens, then you know what's happening, right? This is getting to be too much on one page. I need to split this off, right? That's when you go into making a blueprint. But for this case, I'm just going to have one simple thing, right? We need to import. All right, so we need to actually import our application, or rather, I'm sorry, we need to import from Flask. We need to import some methods, or rather some functions from Flask, such as render template. Right? Render template obviously is going to actually structure the HTML from the template folder. Okay, pretty basic stuff, right? What was the other ones that we did? Redirect, URL for. URL for is going to construct a followable hypertext link, not unlike doing an ahref and then a website name. When you're referencing things inside of the application through an HTTP medium, which is what we are doing, okay, then in order to reference something inside the application, you need to construct a URL for it. One does not yet exist. Okay, so if we wanted to reference, for instance, a CSS file that we had stored in our static folder, then we would need to use URL for. Okay, otherwise it will not work. You cannot use like basic Python package syntax to refer to something from within HTML. And I'm gonna maybe if we have time at the end of all this, I'll demonstrate that, but it's not really very important right now. Okay, I'm just making you aware of it. Render template, URL for, redirect. These are going to be some of the most basic things that you'll be using, right? These are all very much core for any web application. All right. Cool. We don't have any models to import yet. We don't have any forms to import yet. So this is just bare bones basic from the very beginning. This is what your stuff should look like, right? Currently, we're working with our app. So any our text decorator is going to be app. All right. And we're going to say that this is a route. Okay. We're going to give it a direction. This is a I'm sorry, not a direction, a destination. This is going to be the actual destination for this route. Okay, so if you access the /nothing destination from your browser URL bar, this is where it'll take you. Right. We can also optionally define some methods. And typically, if I expect to be doing both getting and posting, I'll make sure to include a list of the approved method types. Essentially, it works like this. If you don't specify this, get is inferred, okay? So understand that you will always be able to get information. If you specifically do not want to get, but only post, then you need to specify like this. Now, get will not be allowed at this destination, and vice versa. Or rather, if you wanted to do put, delete, or anything like that, they would also go here. Those are valid, though a lot less frequently used. Okay, mostly you'll just be working with get and post. So remember, if you want to post but not get, methods needs to be defined, and it needs to be just post. Otherwise, if you want to get and post, then you just need to include both. Everyone tracking that so far? Any questions?
What is get and post?
Get is the HTTP protocol that allows the server to send information to the client. Right? Rather, the client requests information from the server. Post is when the client requests to give information to the server. So if you want to send information from my computer to a web server hypothetical, right, I would need to be able to post on that destination. So this can be frequently referred to, and here's terminology alert, an endpoint. Okay, this is an endpoint. This is a point of access that you might also hear it called. Okay, typically we use that terminology when we're referring to this as an API. All right, or an application plugin. All right, that is an endpoint. And that endpoint accepts these methods and only these methods. So there would be no putting, no deleting, nothing else coming through here, only get and post. Anything else returns a 500 internal. If you do something that is not allowed, you get a 500. The server goes, yeah, I know that that's what you want, but I can't do that. That's essentially what that means, okay? So I'll just leave that there for now. All right, now we're ready to define. Now we have to create a Python function, just the way that he did in lecture, right? We're gonna define index or home, whatever you wanna call this thing, right? It's gonna be your the function that is executed when this endpoint is touched, all right? So a browser directs to this destination. This is the code that's going to be executed, okay? It's important, I think, to consider it like that because this can be very confusing if you don't consider that this is just code that gets executed just like any other Python file, right? We access this endpoint, we get this code in response, all right? So let's do something really basic, right? We can return I don't know, what do you want to return? Yay, it worked. All right, we'll have that print and we'll return it's working. There we go. So this is essentially just going to put out text, right? So when we hit this endpoint, we're just going to get this text response. Okay, let's go ahead and save that. Routes.py right there. And just to confirm, our init does have routes loaded. Let's go nano init. I like nano to just quickly view things from the terminal. Right, I don't have to load up the web or the text editor every time. And I see, yep, I'm importing my routes. So I'm getting my routes and I'm returning an app. Good deal. Okay, so we're ready to actually try running this thing. And we're going to test out this first sort of iteration here, right? So I'm going to cd up where my run.py file is. And remember how it was kind of confusing. You had to do this flask underscore app equals app, flask run, all that nonsense. Well, now you just have to do Python run.py. Oh, and it looks like we got invalid syntax errors. It's saying it doesn't understand this dot thing, which may be because I'm doing it the wrong way. It's actually, let me refer to my working code here and just double check that that's the same way I did it here. No, from dot import routes. Okay, whoops. This dot, in case you're unfamiliar, means from self, basically. It's from directory where you're currently existing. Look for this file. That's what we want. All right, so we're just slight syntactical error here. So we need to fix that. Let's go back. So we need to rather load up our init because it's wrong, right? This is wrong. We need to come down here and fix that. It's not import dot routes, it's from dot import routes. Cool. Everyone see that change I just made? From dot import routes, and that's happening in our create app function, which exists inside of init.py. And we're going to save that. Good deal. All right, so now we should be ready. Let's try it again. Python run.py. Oh, module not found. It looks like it doesn't see Flask SQL Alchemy. Did I spell it right? Yeah, I spelled it right. Hang on 1 second.
To be capital. It's not capital.
What's that?
And it is still need to be capital.
I hear what you're saying. Okay, so the SQL part needs to be needs to be capitalized. I got you. Okay. Small errors like this make the world go round. All right, so let's look at that's from init again. So let's reopen that. This time I'm just going to open it in Atom. Make life a little easier. So from init, okay, so it's complaining about this line right here. And I think all of that needs to be capitalized. I'm pretty sure that needs to be capitalized as well. Save. All right, let's try running it again. Oh, still doesn't like it. All right, so at this point, I'm going to pip list. Oh no, what have I done? I forgot to go in my pip shell. So because I did, and I hate to say that like that, but for real, this is one of the most common causes of errors, okay? If you forget to go into your pip environment, that's not going to run, right? So I need to go in my pip shell. It's launching, and cool. I see we got a prefix, and now I can just double check that I still have. Here we go, and I can see I have Flask SQL Alchemy. Outstanding. So just to make sure that I didn't actually accidentally fix something that didn't need to be fixed, I'm going to fix this back. Say Flask SQL Alchemy. Save, and now we can see if it works. Let's try it again. We're just going to Python run Python run.py. Okay, hang on. Name app is not defined. Oops, we forgot to import app. So this is kind of just iterating over some of these really basic error messages that you might get, right? So we talked about, we had this text decorator for app, but we never imported app, right? So we need to actually do that. Okay, so from myself, import app. Okay, so that should give us the app to work with. Save it. And let's try it again. Oops, here, just come down here. All right, Python run.py again. Let's see what happens. Cannot import name app from app. Okay, what's the problem? Let's, actually real quick, I'm not 100% sure why that's happening. So let's go over here and look at some working code.
Mine's erroring out at the run.py. I don't know if that's what yours was at.
From Flask import create app, current app as app. Okay, so yeah, there's a step that I forgot about. Current app is a method of Flask, and in this case, that's what we actually want to refer to because we have the app context open, right? So a little bit different than some of you might be used to, but let me go ahead and add that in there, and then I'll share that with you as well. So we are going to, in our routes.py, we're going to say from Flask import current app, and then we're going to alias that as app to make it a little bit easier for us to work with. And Ryan, where'd you say you were erroring at?
I'm getting the same error, but it's at the run.py.
Okay, that's probably okay. I think from Flask import, yeah. So let me save that, and I'm gonna. This is our current routes.py. It's coming in Slack and routes.py. There we go. Paste that, and in Zoom chat as well for you guys. Okay, so bare bones basic here, but now it should be running. I expect that it would run, so let's find out if I'm right. Nope, Flask object has no attribute routes. Typo. Remove the S here. That should be app.route, I believe. Try it again. And now it's working. And some of you may notice this error message right here, SQL Alchemy database URI, and rather more specifically this one right here, talking about SQL Alchemy track modifications. You probably want to disable this. It's not really useful for anything that we're going to be doing. Okay, it is looks like it's deprecated. Yeah, it's a deprecation warning, and it's going to be disabled by default in the future. Currently, it is just a warning, though. That doesn't mean that that our application is not running. Okay, everything works just fine. So let's actually go ahead and go look at it.
Brandon, do you remember you said you like errors?
I love errors.
I want to ask. I have a huge error problem.
Yeah, it's working.
With steps.
Sweet.
Hey, Brandon, while you're there real quick.
Oh, and by the way, so you understand what that print thing is? Print goes to console. So anytime that this gets accessed, it will print here in the console. Yay, it worked. And anything that gets returned goes to the actual HTML out.
Hey, on that web browser, push F12 real quick.
Push what?
F12. Click on the console tab.
Console?
Yeah, I just want to. Okay, it didn't pop up there. Okay.
No.
It was just the server console then. Okay.
Yeah, it's just server console. Yeah, this is the client console. Nothing happens here.
Yeah, I was just wondering.
Yeah, no problem. So you can actually see we've got HTML here though, right? HTML head, body, HTML. All of that's being constructed by Flask. Okay, so that's a cool thing to kind of remember. All right, cool. So we got it's working to pop up. Pretty awesome. And we got everything's working here, it looks like. Yeah, we got a 200 response, which pop quiz, what does 200 mean for response code? Anyone know?
Working.
Success, right? 200 means success. So anytime you see 200s, you're happy. If you see 404s, you're concerned. And if you see 500, you're angry. That means the server just basically told you, nah, I ain't doing that, bro. Right? Or you asked it to do something it can't do. Okay? 200s are good though. So I see we got 200 here, which means, and you can actually look and see that we did a GET request on the endpoint / and then it gives us the protocol number and the response. So all of this is readable. You know, this right here, this makes a lot of sense, and it actually tells you a lot of information. Get used to seeing this. Okay? So what happened, where it happened, how it happened, and what the end result was. Pretty basic, right? This is stuff I would expect you to be able to understand. All right, cool. That being said, let's go ahead and wander back over here. So now we've got a really basic endpoint working. And just like from the lecture, at this point, you want to start iterating, right? Now we can start working on getting more complicated results back. One of the first things that I want to talk to you guys about is getting that database set up. I want to show you an alternative method, okay? Because I don't know what the heck migrate is, never heard of it, never used it, and I've gotten plenty of databases set up, okay? So I'm going to show you what I know because I don't know migrate, okay? And you guys tell me if it makes more or less sense, okay? So I can hit Control-C from this console and it will shut down.
Wait. Before we do that, my app is not working, and I cannot read this error.
Okay, what is yours?
It's saying SQL Alchemy track modifications add significant overhead and that's it. There's nothing else. And I think it's also showing the errors that you were showing on your console to not worry about, but the app is not running after that.
Share your screen real quick. Let's group debug this. Okay, so it just stops running here. Okay, so it says, all right, Python run.py, and then it attempts to do things. Defaulting to, okay. Find a set. Sequence, and okay, and then it tries to run init. Okay, open up let me see your init real quick. App Flask ROM object config, yep. With app underscore context, init app from .import routes, return app, yep. Okay, and let me see your run.py. Okay, down there at the bottom where it says create app, you're going to say app.run and remove create app. You don't need that anymore. Yeah. Sorry, I had to go back and forth on this a couple of times, and you need the 2 parentheses after run. There you go. Now try it.
There we go.
Yeah, there we go. Cool. Yeah, I forgot about that step.
Can you
Yeah, I
check
didn't see that.
I have an also error. It says that I don't have module .env.
Okay, so share your screen real quick, and we'll group debug that one as well. Usually pretty easy.
Can you see my screen?
Sure can. It says, okay. So it came through.
When you were showing what you have in your like directories, I don't know why I have this .env because you don't have it like listed. Maybe I'm just.
Oh, your VS Code defaults to showing you all of the dot prefixed folders. My terminal does not.
Oh, okay.
So it's there. It just doesn't display every time I do ls. Okay.
Okay,
But
then
you can see it. So let's take a look here. It says module not found .env. So the first thing I want to do is from there, and you're in your virtual environment. So go ahead and run pip list, and let's see what you have access to. Let's see if it's listed. Okay, so we can see that python-.env is not listed there. So maybe we just forgot to install it. Not a big deal. The solution for this would be to run pip-env install.
Exit
then,
first.
You don't have to exit. Pip-env install and then python-.env. There you go. Yep, that's it.
Oh my God.
Not a big deal. It happens. Everyone makes mistakes.
Wow.
Oh, it failed. Let's see what happened here. It's got some other issues. Solver. Oh, hang on.
So
Where is the error message? Scroll up a little bit. Stop. Code 1 and temp. Okay. Very interesting. Scroll down. It's not telling me why. Python setup.py failed. Okay. Exit your pip environment and then try running it. Perhaps Jacob was onto something.
I was just quoting you from earlier.
Were you? Oh, you have im install? You went, oh, yeah, there you go. Install and then python-.env. There you go. Nope. Some other issue here. Okay.
what can be?
So,
Why can I have this issue? Like a.
oh, I don't know.
With the,
Scroll down. Let me look at your type in go to your VS Code rather, I should say. Be easier from VS Code. And click on your pip file. Let me take a look at that. Remove .env. Yep.
and Python dot. I
Nope,
have.
leave that where it is. You should be good. All right. Go ahead and save that. Go back to your terminal, and you're going to run pip-env space lock. Block. All right, run it. There we go. Perfect. So yeah, it was kind of obscure, and I didn't notice it at first, but it was referencing a package that's not real. .env is a package, however, it doesn't work. It hasn't been updated in quite some time. The package that we want is python -.env. Okay, so the other one is, this is the other error that I ran into because I accidentally did the routes import incorrectly. So go back to your init. And, no, that looks right.
Maybe I just didn't save it. Oh, wait a second.
Saying, oh, Flask object has no attribute. Go to your routes.py.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's going to be this right here. Take that S off. It's just route. My apologies. Okay, now it should work.
Oh my God, it's already me.
There we go.
Make it run.
Good deal.
Okay, thank you.
You got it.
All right.
So
next in line, I guess.
yeah,
Mine
absolutely.
should be relatively easy. It's just a run.py error. It's in the
Run.py.
run. Yeah, it's in the run file.
Share your screen. Let's take care of it.
go.
Okay, so let's see. It's saying Python run.py, file run.py on line 1, from app, import create app. Okay, so that is going to be, instead of from app, import create app, I think, hang on, that's the issue. Hi. From app, import create app. What's the name of the folder that is your app? Let's take a look at that. Yeah,
My
you
bad.
have Twitoff and then web app. So it's not going to be app, it's going to be web app. You need to
Okay.
reference from folder import function. No, not right there. You did it on the wrong spot. Yeah. You're gonna do it here. Web app.
Oh, from there.
Yeah. Create app is the name of the function. This is the name of the folder.
Okay.
So that's all correct. Now try running it. Let's see what happens. No module named web app. That appears to be what the name of it is. You have no, wait, yeah, you do. Init, right here. Go to your init.py. Flask import flask. dp init. Return app. App equals create app. Okay, remove all of that. Okay, now add in the app config down here. You're gonna say app.config. Yeah, and then
That-
dot from object. It's gonna be from underscore object.
What is that app context?
This thing right here, that's not right either. We'll fix that in a second. And then in parentheses, you're going to put config, all lowercase, dot config with an uppercase C. No from. Remove that.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's just
I
config.
literally just saw from up there.
And then dot uppercase C config. That is, again, and just real quick, none of this is magical, right? This is the name of the Python file right here. And that's the name of the class that we instantiated inside of it. Okay. So this is a little bit of memorization stuff, right? You can find the documentation on it, but it's kind of obscure. So I apologize for that because I try to take that out as much as possible. This underscore is also giving you an issue. So that needs to be a dot. It's app context. There we go. So app.context, referencing a from application, which is, remember, we've defined that variable here as a Flask object. Okay. So from that, we're gonna execute app context, which is a method of that Flask object. Okay. And then inside of that app context, we're doing these things. Okay. Also, you're gonna need to make sure that you tab these over. I know it seems weird, but Python cares about where your no, bring this back. This needs to go back over here. There you go. Perfect. Oh, hang on a second. Is that the issue? Yeah, all of that needs to be tabbed one more time. There we go. Now it's all in line. Yeah, so with app.app context, and then all of this happens within here, right? And then we return the app. This needs to be pushed over as well. There you go. Okay, so this is the setup, just like this. Okay, make sense? All right, cool. So that may fix the issue. Try running it again. I want to see where we're at. Make sure that's saved. Okay, still no module named web app. So what's happening? run.py from web app. And I can only think, are you working inside of this folder?
Yeah, I
Or are
believe
you
so.
working? No, you're not. Because you're in web app.
I just did this trying to fix this.
Yeah, okay.
So I moved my
we
pip
are-
files. I moved my pip files in here too.
Okay, that's part of the issue. What we need to do,
I was getting the same error outside of it. I could just pull it all out, but
yeah, just pull it all out real quick. So actually, what you're going to do, there's two things. This is a two-step process that we're going to do. Okay. Number one, in your terminal, you're going to run pipenv --rm.
even though I'm in the pip shell right now.
Mm-hmm. Actually, yeah, no, exit it first. Exit it first. You're right. And now, yeah, now run it. RM. Yep.
Ciao.
There you go. Oh, error occurred. The directory is not empty. Okay. That's a first.
We can worry about this later. Because I was just trying to make our lecture one work with what you were doing, so I've overcomplicated this.
Yeah, that's part of the reason why I started fresh at the beginning, because I knew it was going to be so different.
I know he's going to keep iterating off of the notes, so I was just, like I said, trying to make it work. But
everything that comes next works with what I've got. It's just this initial setup that's weird. Okay, essentially what you need to get this pip environment in the root directory. If you have the pip environment inside of web app, that's where everything gets referenced from. So it doesn't see that the module name is web app. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's the problem. If you're in the root directory, then it sees this as a package and then runs everything inside of it. Okay?
Yeah.
That's the issue that you're running into here. Okay, so it's technically not wrong. There is no module named web app, not from where it's sitting, which is inside the module web app, right? The funny thing about these things, Python can only look down. It cannot look up, okay? That's important to understand. Not natively, not when you're doing imports. So yeah, you're gonna have an issue creating the environment now.
You removed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all right. I'll fix it.
I think your run.py is also inside. I can definitely help you some more, I think.
Start over, Ryan.
One-on-one.
Yeah, I'll just delete the whole thing.
Yeah, buddy.
I think I can definitely help you with that. It's just going to take a little bit of doing. All right, so let's see where everybody's at here. Anybody have any questions about what we've got set up so far or how it's working?
I'm also running into an issue. I hope it's not too long, but it says, can I import name Flask from Flask? Do you know where that could be coming from?
Capitalization. Check it. Make sure.
Okay,
Make sure your second Flask is capitalized.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Your other one is not.
Yeah, second Flask should be capitalized. It's the name of the class. Class names are always start with a capital.
Okay, yeah, now it's saying Flask is not defined. App equals.
Make sure it should be uppercase F. App equals uppercase F Flask.
Just the F, buddy.
Yeah, just the F.
Okay, so uppercase, and then app equals under the create app, right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, under create app. That's right. Because that's where you're instantiating the object.
All right.
Okay, guys, this is really as far as I need to take you. Here's the thing. From this point, okay, the only things that change are some iteration on the code that gets executed when you hit an endpoint, right? So you have that that endpoint that we created, the /. You could do any endpoint that you wanted, right? You could have an endpoint that is /, hello world, and it returns a picture of Hello Kitty, right? It could be whatever you wanted at this point. Okay.
Good example.
What's that?
Good example.
I know, right? Try not to get bogged down too much in what that JSON stuff was about. Here's the deal on that. Typically, you will never really be converting from a database to JSON. You will always be doing it the other way. Okay, you'll be converting JSON and then putting it into your database. Okay, which we're going to cover some more of that later. Okay, but all the DB stuff. Oh, that's the other thing I need to show you. Hang on. Nope. I'm not done. I need to show you how to instantiate that database. So instead of the migrate thing, we want to do something a little bit different. Okay. So from here, we're inside of our base directory, all right, our web app directory. If we load into Python, I want to show you something cool. Okay. You might see a warning about this. It's okay. This is just complaining because we're using conda Python. Okay.
How's it?
Yeah. All right. So we go into our Python REPL. Now remember, from the base directory, not from within our application module, but from the base. Okay. And we can actually import, or rather create the app. Okay. Let me show you how that would work. We say from app, import app. Oh, nope, that didn't work. Hang on. Should be yeah, no. Import app. It's not liking that. Oh no, from app import create.
Without the.
Oh, yep. Oh,
Nope.
come on.
You missed it by a piece.
There we go. There we go. Okay. I had to remember with the app context. That's something new I'm learning too. Okay. So with app context, we're going to say from the app, import the function create app. Okay. That makes a lot more sense. Now, if we look at that, that's a thing. Okay. So we can actually see that. This is essentially telling us that it is in 100% internal, that there's no external methods available to us. Okay. But if we say app equals create app, much the same way that we did in our run.py, we get this same sort of output, right? Where it's talking about complaining about the SQL alchemy and all that nonsense. But now when we look at app, look at all this nonsense. All of that is including that elusive and very not well understood app context, right? It all exists here, right?
Huh.
So this is the entire app. And now I can say from app import DB, and now I can dir DB, and I see that it has those SQL commands, right? Outer join and mapper and engine and all this other nonsense, right? So now I can do all of the things that I need to do on DB, and I'm looking for something in specifically I want to create or maybe create all. And if I look here, oh, look at that.
Okay.
I have a create all method, right? So when I have something in my models, right, where I'm actually using that DB and I've instantiated a model class, then I would just come in here and do db.createAll. Okay, I would run it. It's not actually going to do anything, right? No application found. But I would do db.createAll, and then I would do db.commit. Okay, it would be that simple. That's the process. So let's see if I can actually do that real fast here. I've got this stuff. I need atom models.py. Let's do something really basic. Create some database models. Okay, so let's go ahead and just do this real quick. We're going to import from app import DB. So we need to bring in DB here because we need to reference it. Okay, and what else are we going to need? I think that's it. Okay, from app import DB, and now we can say class user, and this is going to be model. Okay, so it's going to inherit this model class. That's going to make it, that creates that ORM map, that object relational mapping. So now it knows that this is a database model. And in fact, I think that needs to be db.model because we haven't told it where it's coming from. Okay, so DB's got a thing called model, and we're going to use that to template user. So now this will be recognized by the SQL engine as a database table that we're instantiating. Okay. So let's look. I've actually got, real quick, hang on. So let's look at SQL Alchemy, Flask, SQL Alchemy, Flask, SQL Alchemy, setup. I love this. Look, in 5 seconds, I've got a fully working example of how to get this set up. Okay, so it's doing the app stuff right here. That's okay. We don't need to do that. This is going to come in hand though. We're going to remember that. Okay, but yeah, for our class, we just need db.model to instantiate that db bit, right? And then we're going to define some stuff. Okay, so ID could be db.column. Where's all that coming from, by the way? Let me show you. Right in here somewhere is where it's at. Here's column, right? All of these things can be found. None of this is magical, right? Here's column. I think you'll find integer, interval, JSON, load. All of these things are things you can use. Numeric is a data type, okay? All of these are referenced like this, right? So we're setting that up, db.column. That's going to be a new column with a db.string data type. Has to be unique, cannot be null. Right, that kind of basic setup, not unlike a database schema that you would have set up right with using SQL language. Okay, so let's do something similar to this. Keep it simple. Okay, we'll say user. We'll get an ID equals db.column. So what we're saying ID is the name of this column. It must be an integer. Okay. We also needed to be a primary key. Now you'll probably remember, right, that we had something interesting. This parameter here, primary key equals true, is going to make sure that this is, or rather this number here is the key for this table, right? Each table needs to have a key. So we'll say primary key is true. All right. And just to confirm syntax, yeah, syntax wise, nothing required at the end of this line. We just drop down to the next line. Okay. We'll say name, db.column, again, db.string for the data type. I don't want them to not be able to have a name. So I'm going to say nullable, false, and we'll call that good. All right. Okay. And something else, make it simple. We'll say date of birth. Equals db.column. And okay, so this is going to be an interesting one, right? There is datetime formats. I'm not 100% confident about them, so let me see if I can find them real quick. Flask, SQL Alchemy, date. See, that's going to be datetime. Okay, so they have a datetime that can be, okay, this is a little bit different. This is talking about, this essentially gets that Unix time, which is that bunch of numbers that actually equals a specific time. That's not exactly what we want. It looks like that. So let's see if, okay, that might be a little too complicated. In this particular case, then I'm just going to dumb this down by making it a string. All right, so we'll just pass in a date of birth as a string, right? A string of the month, day, year. So we'll do that now. I don't want to spend too much time on that, but as a stretch goal, see if you can figure out how you can get that formatted correctly. Okay, and again, everyone has a birthday, so that needs to be false. It cannot be nullable. Okay, and that's it. So just like that, we have our user class, which is a database model. Okay, so we come back to our Python REPL here. I'm going to say Python, and now we can import create app. Oh, I'm in app. See, I started this in app and now it doesn't work. That's not going to work for us. We need to go back to the root directory and then go into Python. And now I can say from app, import create app, right? App equals create app. And we get the nice warning there about SQLite Alchemy track notifications. Not really concerned about that right now. Okay. And now I can say from app import db. Right. And now if I do db.createAll, it's not going to work. Why isn't it going to work? Because we haven't actually given it any location to go to, right? So we need to actually instantiate this thing. We've got it plugged into our app, but it's not doing anything. And I can confirm that by looking at app.db. Flask object attribute has no, or rather Flask object has no attribute db. If I look at app and go to the Ds, there's no db currently. Okay, and I can confirm that it should have db because I've instantiated it here. But rather, what's happening is that's inside of the app context. So db here, what we're going to need to do is define a location for this. So let's go back over here real quick. Inside of our config, there we go. Oh, wait, I didn't realize it was going to start a new one. Hang on. I'll just redo all that in a second. Yeah, from our config here, so we want to add them config.py. So 130, keeping track of time here. Where's it at? Oh, okay, I guess it's going to load a new one. Okay. We would want to include, right, the location for this database file, right? So where do we do that? How are we going to do this? So I'm going to say a db equals, or rather SQL URI database, or rather, I think it should be database URI. Let's environ.get db address. All right. Where do I need to? What do I need to update in order to read that off? Anybody?
The .env file?
Yeah, the .env file. Exactly right. So all this is being pulled from the .env. I need to go to the .env and change it. All right, so let's go ahead and do that now. And even though you can't see it, it does still exist. So that will pull it up there, and it's here. Okay, so and again, this would be another situation, right? This is sensitive information that you wouldn't want everyone to have access to, right? Because if you're using like a Postgres or something like that, the URL contains your username, your password, right? All of that super sensitive information that only you are supposed to be able to have. So assuming that that everyone has their own admin accounts, right, or something like that, you would want to make sure that everyone is forced to use their own login, okay? Not steal yours. So this is one of the locations, this is one of the methods that we use to keep that information secret and secure. Thank you. Awesome. So let's take a look. What we're going to do here is we're going to say db_address equals, and here's another situation where we're going to provide a string, and it's going to be that reference, or rather relative file path, and I'm just going to say testdb for this. Okay. So I've given it some direction, and now I'm going to need to instantiate it. Save, and now SQL database URI is going to be equal to this information here, which is great. And I want to confirm that that is right. Yeah. Config from object db.init. That's going to be correct. Okay. That context. All right. So let's go back in here and figure this out. So we go back into Python now. app, create app. Oh, nope. Yeah, and then app equals create app. There we go. All right, so it says neither SQL Alchemy database URI nor SQL Alchemy binds is set, defaulting to this. That's not what we were looking for. We have this set, and we need it to be right. So let's take a look and see what we need to do to fix that. Okay. So db.init app. Okay. I think it needs to go here. So we need app.config, and I think we need to get, yeah, db, what did we call that other file? Nope, hang on. I don't think that's right. Let's try this. Next. Okay. db. Functionality review as no. Okay. Oh no, that doesn't work. db.init app. Ah, it expected indented block. Oh, screwed it up there. db.init app. Oh, okay, I see what's happening here. It's not defined because we haven't actually defined it. Okay, so app.config from object. Config has, oh, maybe it's not under the right name. What did it say before? What was it complaining about? SQL Alchemy database URI. Let's go back to our file, config file. Make sure that's under the right name. It's loading. It's like 1:30, so I really want to kind of finish up now. So hopefully we can get this to work. Yeah, SQL database URI. I didn't put it in there right. All right, so this needs to be SQL Alchemy database URI. There we go. SQL Alchemy database SQL Alchemy database URI is equal to the DB address from our .env. Looks right to me. Okay, let's try running this again. And I'm just reconstructing everything. Okay, so now we see that we don't get this set to is not set, right? We know that it is set now. So now we should be able to get to the bottom of all this. So I'm going to dir my app, and I should hopefully see. I'm not seeing DB here. From app import DB, dir DB. Okay, so now I should be able to do create all. And that should work. It's giving me the same error. Work inside a view function or push, no application found.
Is it an environment, like that environment, is it the right URL address? Like the database?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that should be working. I missed another step somewhere and I've got to figure out what I forgot to do. Let's see. It's got to do with this app context, I'm pretty sure. Let me double check it. Hang on one second. I'm going to pause this real quick. If you guys got any questions about everything I've done up to this point, go ahead and shoot those to me now while I am troubleshooting what's wrong with this whole situation.
Yeah, I have a question. My SQL Alchemy object does not consist or does not have column or integer or string or anything.
Is that what you're getting from the VS Code linter?
I don't know how to see if that's what it is, but yeah, I think so. I'm pretty
Is it
sure.
with the
Yeah, it
red
just says
squiggly lines?
instance. Yeah, is an instance of SQL Alchemy has no
Ignore.
column member.
Yeah,
Ignore it.
ignore it. Mhm.
Okay, it happened
It
to me as well
always
during the lecture, and I was like, I
it
don't know
always
what's
does that
happening.
with things because it hasn't been instantiated technically. It's not lying
Yeah,
to you. It doesn't
yeah.
because it doesn't yet. Right? It will once it actually inherits the things from SQL Alchemy. Okay. So yeah, it's complaining because that code has to run in order for it to be true. That makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. I see.
So yeah, it's going to complain. Create DB tables, Flask app. I'm trying to figure out
When you have
what
time,
I
can you
have
tell me
forgotten.
again the database address in that end? I think I just missed something. Like I just wrote it wrong. Where did you take it from even? I missed it.
Oh, so it's just SQLite. Hang on. Let me come over here to the Zoom chat actually, because everyone can see that. What you want to do is you want to do SQLite and then colon. Oh, I like that it autocorrects that for me. That's cool. Don't do that. 3 forward slashes is relative. 4 is absolute. So I use 3 because I want it to create this database and the root directory. Okay. And then it's just the name of your database dot extension. So it looks like that, right? The valid extensions would be .db, .SQLite, something like that. Identifies it as a database. Okay. But that SQLite dot or colon and then 3 forward slashes, that's going to be the ticket to getting it to create the database file in the root directory or the base directory. Trying to use consistent verbiage. So let's take a look. What have I forgotten? Yeah. Okay. SQL Alchemy database URI. We need to hook that up. Aha. I did forget a step. And I did my DB in the wrong place. db.createAll. Okay, I think I might have figured out what's wrong with it. I did miss a step. Don't need any of that right now. All right, so let's go back over here. Actually, to my Atom. So this is correct. That's not the issue. The issue looks like the plugin was in the wrong place. So you're going to take the plugin that's from within the with app underscore app context, and that's actually going to go up here. Okay, so we're going to say db dot init app, then put app in. If I'm understanding this correctly, hang on 1 second. Let me just double check that was. No, it's from within create app. I'm okay. A little slow today. All right, it's not here. I'm sorry. It's going to be here. So we're going to say db.init app and put in app. Yeah, one of the ways I knew that was wrong right away is because we hadn't defined app yet. Anytime you use app as a parameter that you're passing into something, it needs to come after you've defined it. So here we're creating this db.init app, and then here once we open up our app context, we're actually going to do that create all function. This is the reason why it wasn't working, is because it actually wasn't getting that app. Okay, it wasn't being instantiated correctly. So this updated. This needs to move up out of the app context into the base function. And then we're going to add this line, db.createAll, accessing that createAll method of db within the app context. Okay? Everyone tracking that? Slight change I had to make there to make that work. Honestly, I've never done this yet. Let's try it out, see if it works. we're going to come over here. And now I can actually just pull this up and fix it. There we go. So when we run this, it should create all of our tables. And I can confirm that it did that because when it does, a new file will exist, be created here, and it should have the name testDB or test database, right? So let's go ahead and run this. All right, right on. Okay, so it starts serving, and okay. So let's take a look and see if it worked. It sure did. testdb.sqlite. So if we were to look in here, we would probably see, right, that it has begun to work. How can we do that? Anyone remember? How can we look? Actually, I want to make sure that I get into the right location here. Yeah, there it is. Who remembers the how do we do the SQL? Come on, it was only last week, guys. Y'all don't forgot how to do SQL? How can we look at this table and see if it's got everything we need?
I remember cursor, but I forgot the other word.
Okay, you need to open a
Connection.
connection.
That's the word. Connection.
Connection, cursor.
Yeah, SQL.connect.
Connection, then cursor. Yeah.
Test. Don't forget these skills, man. You're going to be using these all the time. Okay. We're going to open up our connection, and then we're going to get our cursor. I'm just going to call that C for trying to keep things a little simple here. Cursor. All right. Then we create our cursor, and now we can do C.execute. We don't have anything in this yet, so when I do this, it should return an empty list. That's my expectation. Okay, because we don't have any data in this table yet. Select all from, what did we call that table? User, right? From user. And that should be it. No such table user.
I think it was a capital U.
Yeah, that's right. Because our model had a capital U. Let's nope, still doesn't like it. So let's see, did it not create the table? It should have created the table. And it should be lowercase, but let's take a look. SQL, how to get all of the, let's double check this real quick. Get all SQLite 3 tables. Yep, select name from SQLite master, where type equals table. That. All right, so we're going to try this again. We're going to say C.execute to get all the table names. We're going to say select name from SQLite master, I believe it was. Confirm from SQLite master, where type equals table. Where type equals table. Empty list. So it didn't create our table for some reason. Okay, weird. Because we have a table in our models. Why wouldn't it create it? Let's go take a look. Now we're getting into to real life errors here. Because I would expect that it has access to these things. So what has happened? Aha. I see what's wrong here. Does anyone know what's wrong with this? There's no connection between models and init. Import user. We need to bring that over. So now, no, that's not going to work. Hang on. It's not seeing it. Let's try creating a new route. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to, from models, import user. All right, set the name, yeah, user. I'm going to say app.route. Yeah. And it's just going to have the one thing that we needed to do. So we're going to say define, create tables, return db.create. Yo. That should have worked here though. Just got the app open. And it has to read to be done in the app. Import routes. Hang on one second, y'all. I'm missing the connection between models and let me try to figure this out. Create database. Here we go. What am I missing? Okay. Maybe that's what I need to do. Okay. Hang on one second, y'all. I'm going to delete that route. That should work here. We're going to switch these around. There we go. And here in routes, we're going to import and save. Yeah. Let's try that out. Module named. There we go. Okay. Restarting the stat. Okay. Control C. Okay. Hmm. Hmm. Okay. I'm gonna have to stop here because I'm running into an issue here. I think I need to do a little bit more research on it. Yeah, I'm not able to get it to load the database, and I think I know why, but I'm not 100% sure. So let me get back to everybody on that one. Okay. But how do we feel about this whole process so far? Everything up to getting the database working.
I think this setup is a lot more simpler than what we did during the lecture. I
Okay.
understand more of it. I'm just worried about like if he's doing something during the lecture, will I be able to translate it to how we did it here?
Yeah, so
Easy enough.
at this point, once I figure out this database thing, which I'm pretty sure is something pretty simple, um, at this point, all that would really happen, or the only things that are really going to be different, is anytime he makes a change to a knit, it would have to go in the create app part, and everything else is pretty much the same. Everything for routes is still going to be in routes, right? Um, everything from a blueprint, instead of being in a blueprint, just put it in your routes. Okay, you don't, yeah, unless it starts to get like um, really really complex, in which case adding a blueprint is just as simple as going to your create app function and adding in that register blueprint and then creating your new
Oh,
folders. You see what
so
I'm saying?
I see. Yeah, so I see that's why we did the from directory import routes, so we don't have to do the blueprints thing and import each individual
Yeah,
route.
correct. You
That way.
just do all the
Okay,
routes in one go.
cool. Yeah, that's a lot more simpler.
Yeah, that's kind of the idea. I'm going to work on this database thing, try to get that ironed out. I think most people have gotten out of this what they need. Um, let's see, I have no module name web app.
Yeah, I joined a little bit late, so I think that I'm just missing, some of the code from earlier on.
Okay, I'll share that with you real quick.
Awesome.
Yeah. Let's look at. I'm kind of aggravated that I can't get that database thing to work. That's supposed to be like the simplest step. You just go in and create all, but for some reason it's not wanting to make that connection. So I'll have to figure that out. But that's real life coding, right? Sometimes you think you have it all figured out and then everything's supposed to work in a very simple way, and then you go to do it and it just doesn't. All right, troubleshooting. Let me get, so you're okay. If you're using web app, are you trying to modify the lecture code to work with what we were doing?
You know what? Yeah, I think that I hadn't, excuse me, I hadn't gotten very far
Let me send.
into my lecture code, so I think that what's under my app.py is probably different than what you have.
Yeah, here. Let me 1 second. Let me give you. Yeah. All right. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to zip up this folder and send it to you. Okay.
Okay. Awesome.
So it
Thank you.
has this. It has the structure with all the code that currently works up to creating the database table, which I'm going to fix post haste.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you got it. All right. Cool. So anyone else have any questions about the basic app Flask structure so far?
I don't think so.
No? Okay. So at this point, we just need to get that database hooked up. That's going to be pretty vital, so I'm going to work on that right now and then post as soon as I've got that fixed. Okay? Right on.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Yeah, let's take a break, and I will let everyone know when I've got more to present.
Listen, will you let us know if we have one-on-ones today? I mean, our team.
Oh yeah, so yeah, no, we're well into one-on-one time, which is another reason why I wanted to really kind of end at around 1:30, but then unexpected errors. No mandatory one-on-ones today. I will let you guys basically tell me if you want to have a one-on-one, okay? And I'll make a post about that here in just a minute. Mondays will no longer be mandatory one-on-ones. It'll only be Tuesday through Friday.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you got it. All right, cool. All right, I'll see you guys a little bit later.
Thank you.